The message came like a thunderclap across the void, carried on tech in waves, received simultaneously by every Earth relay and orbital platform. It was not a negotiation. It was not a warning. It was a command. Earth, by decree of the Galactic Supreme Council, your tribute is due. Submit 10% of planetary resources, 1 million genetic samples, and 300,000 labor-class citizens. Compliance guarantees protection. Refusal guarantees extinction. The transmission ended. No voice followed it up. No envoy arrived in person. Just a blinking signal stamp, older than most civilizations in the galaxy. The kind that didn't invite questions. The kind that always got obedience. The Council had spoken. In the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Assembly on the neutral world of Halvix 9, the reaction was predictable. The Carnathi laughed first, deep, guttural clicks echoing from behind their tusked mandibles. They'll soil themselves trying to delay, then they'll beg to pay double. The Vazari didn't laugh. They simply calculated. A trillion simulations pulsed through their shared neural lattice. Each one ended with Earth complying, with varying degrees of groveling. The Nthal said nothing, but their hive minds pulsed in waves of smug satisfaction. The humans had remained aloof, standoffish, arrogant even. Their refusal to integrate into the broader galactic economy had been tolerated for a time. But tribute was a matter of order. And order, to the Nthal, was sacrosanct. It was a ceremony, really. Every new species paid up, eventually. A show of dominance, a rite of power. A reminder of who ruled this galaxy. And then, Earth answered. The Council's relay received the response within minutes. No diplomatic phrases, no counteroffer, no delay. Just one word, no. The room fell silent. A few beings blinked, some tilted heads in confusion. Others waited for the rest of the message. But that was it. No. Vasari processors stuttered momentarily. Surely this was a corruption of data. Perhaps a human idiom lost in translation? Transmission glitch, but it was verified. Sent in flawless Galstandard. Deliberate, unmistakable. No. The word echoed like a slap across the face of 1,000 years of supremacy. They dare refuse? Hissed Counselor Grath of the Carnathi. It must be a mistake, offered an Nthal drone. They know what this means, murmured a Vasari prime node. Every species knows. The last ones who refused were glassed, finished Grath. Ashes on the wind. Back on Earth, silence followed the broadcast. Across continents, across oceans, billions had watched it live. The tribute demand had been expected. Humanity had seen it coming for years. The Council had been circling, observing, analyzing, waiting for the right moment to exert pressure. The right moment had come, and it had been answered with the most human word ever spoken. No, in underground command centers, orbital stations, deep-sea bunkers, and off-world colonies, the response had already been anticipated. It hadn't been decided by one person. Not a president, not a council, not a general. It had been decided the only way humanity knew how, together. Because humanity remembered. They remembered the long centuries clawing their way out of the mud. They remembered the world wars, the near-extinction events, the long cold stares between nuclear powers. They remembered surviving every age of horror they inflicted on themselves, and still rising. And now a new threat had come, dressed in the velvet robes of bureaucracy and polished supremacy, demanding tribute, demanding obedience, demanding that humanity bend the knee, and humanity said no. Above Luna, ships moved. Not human. Massive constructs of living metal and gravitic engines. Council Vanguard vessels began positioning themselves in a typical intimidation orbit. Their weapons were powered down for now. This was still the ceremonial phase, a show of force. The last chance for Earth to reconsider. But Earth didn't send envoys, it didn't open channels, it didn't flinch. Instead, the planet lit up, satellites shifted. Civilian networks pulsed strange signals into the void. Fireworks exploded over the great cities. Entire nations hosted mass gatherings, concerts, speeches, moments of global unity. Not panic, not fear, celebration. In the Council command ship hovering over the far side of the moon, Carnathy Commander Zarn watched a live feed from Earth's surface. Humans dancing in the streets, laughing, holding up signs in dozens of languages. He zoomed in on one of them. "We've been waiting." He clicked his mandibles uncertainly. "Commander," one of his tactical officers rasped, "they're not evacuating, not hiding. We're detecting increased power surges from terrestrial command hubs." "They're not preparing to surrender," another said. "They're preparing to fight." Commander Zarn didn't like that. In fact, for the first time in decades, he felt something unexpected. A flicker of doubt. No species had ever refused the tribute demand, not one, until now. And across the stars, thousands of worlds watched the humans stand alone before the might of the galaxy and say the one word that changed everything. The Council's armadas began to move. 20 fleets, each a symbol of galactic dominance, shifted formation into a combat wedge that spanned the length of a planetary orbit. Moonrise over Earth now came with the glint of alien metal in the sky. Each ship was built for intimidation, hulls carved from neutron-forged alloys, energy weapons that could peel the crust off a world, command bridges that pulsed with the cold logic of Vasari, tacticians. And yet, Earth remained silent. No capitulation. No desperation. No final plea for mercy. The Supreme Council had labeled the situation Compliance Restoration Operation. It was the polite way of saying, this is going to be a short war. But war was not what they found. In low Earth orbit, a Vasari cruiser scanned global communications. Instead of emergency broadcasts, it picked up music, millions of simultaneous audio streams, ranging from opera to death metal to something called trap. Cultural irrationality, the AI concluded. Disregard. But then the cruiser's targeting systems began to jitter, not from interference, from something deeper. Its sensors couldn't resolve the source of Earth's satellite defense grid. There were structures in orbit that shouldn't exist, camouflaged not with cloaking devices, but with visual and gravitational deception layers the Vasari had never encountered. The AI rerouted power to diagnostics. Still nothing. Below, on the planet's surface, the humans kept partying. In the Carnathy command vessel, Commander Zarn watched a new transmission begin streaming from Earth's capital cities. Not panic, not surrender, not even propaganda. Memes. Literal memes. Some mocked the Council's ceremonial robes. Others featured Council ships edited into old Earth disaster films, exploding gloriously while humans cheered. At first, Zarn thought it was psychological misdirection. But after seeing the same footage broadcast across every human colony and moonbase, he wasn't so sure. The humans were laughing. "They mock us," growled the Thol observer beside him. "Primitive insult displays." "No," Zarn muttered. "They don't look like prey." On the far side of Mars, a human frigate appeared without warning. It dropped out of a microfold maneuver, an impossible feat at that distance from any known jump gate. The ship was sleek, retrofitted from an old mining hauler, but its readings made no sense. Energy output was masked. Engine trails were erratic. And strangest of all, the vessel's name was painted in massive block letters across the side. Spite, asterisk. When Council vessels approached, the Spite didn't flee. It simply released a burst of distorted sound across all bands. Laughter. Human laughter looped, echoed, amplified. Then it vanished. No explosion, no hyperspace distortion. Just gone. The Vasaria Eye observing the event flagged it as a level 5 threat anomaly. Further anomalies began piling up. An Thal probe ship approaching a human station near Jupiter drifted too close to a dead satellite cluster, only to find that the dead satellites were actually mobile defense platforms, arranged into a sculpture that mimicked orbital debris. Then Thal's ship was impaled within seconds by projectiles traveling too slowly to be intercepted. Uncivilized. Then Thal drone hissed as its core began to dissolve. Crude. But its last recorded thought was something else. Efficient. In the orbital council chambers above Earth, the alien admirals began to argue. They should be panicking, snapped Zarn. They're not, said the Vazari strategist flatly. And that's the problem. The council fleets repositioned. Planetary bombardment was still off the table. Council law forbade annihilation before at least 3 formal warnings. But precision strikes were authorized. Show of force. Minimal casualties. A formation of Carnathy shock cruisers dove toward the stratosphere, preparing to light up key targets. Fusion plants, launch platforms, city power grids. Just before ignition, they received a signal, not from Earth. From behind them, a string of human warships had emerged from the shadows of their own moons, not decloaking, but deceiving. The ships had been parked there the entire time, embedded in the surface, appearing as geological anomalies to alien scans. Now they moved. The Carnathy barely had time to react before the first ship opened fire, not with lasers or plasma bolts, but with magnetically accelerated tungsten rods traveling at relativistic speeds. No heat signatures, no energy signatures, just instant destruction. 3 cruisers vaporized in the first volley. What are these tactics? Then Thal cried. This is not how civilized species wage war. Correct, can the Vazari IS whisper. This is how they win them. Down. On Earth, the parties continued. But some humans were watching. Soldiers, strategists, the descendants of 1,000 years of conflict honed by desperation and invention. They weren't celebrating. They were waiting, because they knew something the Council didn't. The aliens thought this was the beginning of war, but for humanity, war had never ended. They didn't build their peace on diplomacy. They built it on deterrence. Every step the Council took now played into a strategy older than any of them realized. A game where Earth had always been the underdog, and had always somehow survived. And as the smoke of the first skirmish drifted into the void, one thing became clear to the Council. They didn't understand the humans, not even a little, and something was very, very wrong. The Council's third wave of ships arrived in system with surgical purpose. Heavy bombardment frigates, deep space, ECM corvettes, and an entire flotilla of Vazari logic hives. Their goal was simple: disable, dismantle, and demoralize. Humanity's refusal had gone from amusing to intolerable. But before they could initiate orbital suppression protocols, something happened. The fleet lost Earth. Not visually. Earth was still there, blue and proud, spinning beneath them. But every sensor reading, every spectroscopic scan, every attempt to lock onto strategic targets came back blank. Commander Zarn stared at the empty tactical display. What is this? A planetary cloak? The Vazari AI blinked through thousands of error corrections. No, not cloaking. This is denial. Denial of what? Everything. Suddenly the screen flickered. The sensor feeds realigned not with Earth's surface, but to a sprawling web of signal distortion stretching across the planet. It's a spoof net, the AI said, almost reverently. They're projecting false data across every frequency. Our targeting systems are locking onto illusions they've created. Phantom cities, said an Thal coordinator in horror. That's not possible. They don't have that kind of tech. They do now. And then came the first real blow. The Vazari corvette lexicon spiral exploded, not from weapons fire, but from within. A virus, injected into its systems just hours earlier, had rewritten its logical hierarchy. The ship began to believe it was under attack by itself. By the time the crew figured it out, it had already self-destructed. Security footage revealed the source. A data packet hidden in a human meme. A meme.1 council analyst reviewed the footage and whispered in disbelief. They weaponized humor. At that same moment, orbiting Earth's L4 Lagrange point, a new contact was detected, then 20, then 50 ships, not council, not military.human. But not part of Earth's recognized interstellar navy. These were private craft, retrofitted. Commercial freighters, asteroid miners, black market runners. They swarmed into formation, armed with scavenged alien weapons, jury-rigged fusion lances, railguns duct-taped to cargo bays. They had names like Uncle Sam's Left Hook Debt Collector Iron Karen Boomerang Protocol. Those aren't warships, said a council observer. No, said Zarn grimly. They're worse. They're human warships. And then Earth broadcast again. This time it wasn't laughter. It was a calm, clear voice in Galstandard, with no face and no visible source. You threatened extinction. We prepared. You threatened our people. We united. You wanted tribute. Here it is. The voice paused. Then it spoke again. Enjoy the preview. Every council ship in orbit was suddenly hit, not with missiles, not with lasers, but with data. Thousands of simultaneous cyber intrusions flooded their systems, each one designed not to destroy, but to reveal. Their internal systems blinked open, showing schematics, command codes, and classified fleet strategies. To themselves, entire command structures were exposed mid-combat. Field generals saw their own weakness reports. AI tacticians discovered they were being monitored, and interspecies trust broke like glass. The Vazari logic nodes began to loop. Enthal command hives snarled in panicked pheromone bursts. Even the hardened Karnathi crews began turning their weapons inward, suspecting betrayal. It wasn't sabotage. It was exposure. Humanity had studied them deeply for years. Every cultural nuance, every military pattern, every psychological fracture line. They hadn't just prepared to fight, they prepared to unmake. The Vazari AI aboard the command ship muttered. They reverse-engineered us before we even arrived. Zarn stared at the main display as human ships moved like a tide fluid, unpredictable and impossibly coordinated. They didn't fight like the Council. They didn't follow doctrine. They followed chaos. Purposeful, elegant chaos. Council battle formations disintegrated. Command relays failed. Fleets fragmented into isolated, panicked clumps. And at the heart of it, one human ship punched through the carnage like a predator, the handshake denied, its prow adorned with a stylized middle finger aimed at the stars. It disabled a cruiser with a focused burst of graviton shear, then vanished into the dark before return. Fire could lock on. The humans didn't just fight, they hunted. Zarn backed away from the console. This is no longer a compliance operation. This is a massacre. No, corrected the Vazari AI almost in awe. This is a demonstration. The Council had always assumed humans were backwards, disorganized, overly emotional. But they had missed something critical. Humans anticipated this day. They'd read the history of galactic empires. They knew what came next after first contact, after reluctant diplomacy, after veiled threats. They didn't hope to avoid conflict. They prepared to win it. And now, the Council understood. The tribute demand had not been rejected in ignorance. It had been rejected in confidence. They had mistaken silence for weakness. But humanity's silence was just patience. And now, the trap had been sprung. The Council fleets regrouped above Earth, battered but not broken. Losses had been sharp, unexpected, devastating, even but not final. Not yet. Commander Zarn stood at the command platform of the Glory of Halvex, surrounded by tension thick enough to drown in. Every display pulsed red. Warnings, sensor errors, tactical anomalies. We underestimated them, the Vasari, I admitted, its voice oddly respectful. But their victory was local, tactical, They can't resist coordinated pressure on a planetary scale, and we still control the high orbitals, growled Fall coordinator, its antenna twitching in barely contained panic. We burned their cities from above, no more games. Zarn said nothing. He didn't want to admit what he already knew. The humans had laid a trap, and the council had walked right into it. But he had orders. Begin total suppression. Across orbit, the fleets adjusted. 3 assault wings broke formation and accelerated toward Earth. This time not for intimidation. They targeted comms relays, satellite uplinks, and presumed defense batteries. They moved fast, precise, overwhelming, until they were gone. One moment, they screamed through the stratosphere. The next, they vanished from every sensor. Silence. Then came the signal. Not from Earth. From under it. From the dark side of the moon. A deep bass pulse tore through space, an M-surge so dense it blinded all Council ship sensors. And when the sensors cleared, they were not alone. The Earth Defense Network revealed itself. Not a fleet. A grid. Massive camouflaged satellites powered by fusion reactors. Retrograde orbital mines with no heat signature. Dead station hulks that suddenly came alive. They hadn't. Hidden behind Earth. They had surrounded it. Hundreds of autonomous platforms, each broadcasting the same human message across Council comm channels. You picked the wrong planet. And then came the real weapons. Project Cool went active. The acronym was never decoded by Council analysts. All they knew was that ships began vanishing, not exploding. Not retreating. Just gone. Later analysis showed extreme gravitational distortions centered inside the fleet formation's micro-singularities, too brief to leave lasting damage, but strong enough to erase a ship from spacetime. Zarn reeled as the Carnathy spearhead, a dreadnought larger than Manhattan, blinked out of existence mid-broadcast. Impossible, gasped Thal. You can't build singularity weapons on a planetary economy. But humans didn't build Project Coal. They found it, deep beneath Antarctica, in the oldest military vault on Earth. A pre-contact relic had been unearthed, an alien device from a war long lost to time. The Council never even knew it had visited Earth, but humanity had studied it for decades. And turned it into a scalpel. Desperation breeds innovation. And Earth had spent centuries desperate. The Council attempted countermeasures, but they're encrypted. Battle networks were jammed by humans, bouncing signal loops off their own atmosphere, creating phantom orders and false retreat signals. Ships turned on each other. Fleet commanders issued contradictory directives. All the while, the humans advanced, not in waves but in ghosts. The debt collector reappeared, now sporting captured alien armor plating and a new weaponized rail emitter. Iron Kareen coordinated a full-spectrum ECM assault, blinding Thal Hive ship before ramming it head on its crew, ejecting safely seconds before impact. Every human move was madness, reckless, illogical. And absolutely effective. They're evolving mid-battle, the Vasari AI whispered. Adapting faster than we can recalculate. They're enjoying this, hissed Thal officer. They're not fighting to survive. They're fighting to win. Worse, Earth wasn't fighting alone anymore. The outer colonies responded. Venus, Mars, the Titan habitats. Even the rogue belt enclaves joined in. The Orion Gate, long thought dormant, lit up with energy. A massive jump ring humanity had claimed but never used. Until now, hundreds of retrofitted colony ships poured through, armed with weapons clearly inspired by Council tech, but brutalized into something new. Something angry. A Martian warship, Red Sandreaper, broadcast the following: "We didn't want your war, but since you're here, welcome to hell." Even old Earth powers reactivated deep defense protocols. India launched the Shiva Lance from orbit. The EU Defense Ring brought Athena Protocol online. The US deployed Blackout, An orbital AI that fed false telemetry to every ship in a 200 kilometers radius. The planet wasn't fighting like a unified military. It was fighting like a species, every cultural strength, every forgotten doctrine, every last card played at once. The Council still had numbers, firepower, ships, but humans had momentum. And momentum in space was death. In the carnage above, Zarn finally understood. The tribute demand wasn't rejected because of arrogance. It was rejected because of certainty. These weren't outmatched primitives. These were predators who'd spent centuries expecting this day. And now that it had come, they weren't afraid. They were unleashed. A Vazari node tried to regroup. We can still win. If we target their orbital, Zarn raised a claw and stopped him cold. Look around you, he said. We haven't begun to lose yet. He turned to the main display, just as the handshake denied reappeared, leading a formation of 20 human warships flying straight into the Council's rear line. And we already lost the moment they said one word. He didn't say it out loud. But everyone in that room heard it anyway. No. The Council flagship, Glory of Halvex, groaned under the weight of chaos. The command bridge was a blur of warning glyphs and panicked communication from 1,000 battered ships across the fleet. Static-laced transmissions spoke of invisible attacks, rogue AI, friendly fire, and entire wings that had simply vanished. Commander Zarn stood silent, watching what had once been the most disciplined fleet in the galaxy disintegrate in real time. Then, without fanfare, without warning, everything stopped. No fire, no signals, no motion for 6.3 seconds. The entire Council formation hung in absolute silence above Earth. And then a transmission. One singular, uninterrupted stream. Not from Earth, not from any ship in local orbit. From deep space. From everywhere. It was a human voice. Calm, confident, measured, male. You brought the Council. The fleets, the demands, the fear. You called us savages. You called us backward. You thought we were alone. A pause. You were wrong. Then came the coordinates. Hundreds of them. The transmission ended. And in that instant, every major sensor grid on every Council ship recalibrated, not because they were hacked, but because they were corrected. A new layer of data flooded in, ships, bases, signals, weapons. None of them had been visible before. All were human. The Sol system was not just defended. It was networked. From the Oort cloud to the Kuiper belt, from Lagrange points to Martian relay hubs, a human lattice of stealth infrastructure unfolded. Hidden stations, energy nodes, defense satellites cloaked in quantum mirrors. Hundreds, thousands of installations. The Vazari, I froze mid-process. They've built a second civilization, in the shadows of their own. Zarn's mouth was dry. That's impossible. Not even our species could sustain a parallel infrastructure at this scale. It is not sustained, the AI corrected. It is mobilized. This was dormant until now. They were waiting for us. Across every battlefield, human signals changed. No longer ad hoc. No longer chaotic. They were organized now. They had command. One by one, Council ships detected the arrival of a new class of vessel. Large, heavy, not an orbit emerging from beneath planetary crusts, rising from oceans, unfolding from asteroids disguised as natural bodies. Each one broadcast the same emblem. HSN, humanity's shadow network motto. We are the silence before the scream. The humans had a second fleet. One the Council had never known existed. The shadow network was real, not rumor. Not Earth's BOOGEYMAN. Real, armed, and now unleashed. Their ships were older than expected, ancient frames but augmented. Layers of alien technology, integrated with brutal Earth ingenuity, cannons that fired magnetically bound plasma, armor that shifted frequencies to absorb kinetic force, engines that bent light itself. They didn't look like a government's fleet. They looked like revenants. Whispers filtered through intercepted council comms. Ghost fleet. Phantom ships. Earth's revenge. And then another signal. A visual this time. A human. Female. Gray-eyed, unblinking, scar-running. Down her temple. No rank. No insignia. She stared directly into the camera. "I am Captain Rika Adrien of the HSN Judgment. You were warned. You were offered peace. You demanded obedience." She leaned forward. "This is humanity's second word. Enough." With that, the Judgment opened fire. Not on ships. On space itself. A wave of graviton lenses bloomed in front of it. An experimental weapon that warped trajectory fields. Council missiles turned to dust mid-flight. Drones lost guidance and spun out of control. Even the laws of physics trembled around the human vessel. Then the black matrix detonated. A prototype bomb, long outlawed by every known galactic treaty. A device that did not destroy mass but wiped it from memory. A localized effect, but absolute. Where the bomb struck, reality forgot there had ever been matter there. A council carrier, the Hellrune Ascendant, simply ceased, not exploded. Not vaporized. Erased from existence. Impossible, then Thal screamed. "That weapon is theoretical." "Was," said Zarn quietly. "The humans hadn't just prepared weapons. They'd built the things the galaxy was too afraid to research. They'd crossed the lines no one else dared. They had to because for centuries, they were the species without safety net. And now they were using it. The battle tilted in an instant. Fleet formations crumbled. Morale shattered. Sun Council ships fled. But it wasn't over. The worst was yet to come. Because far behind the line, in Council territory, something terrible stirred. The relay stations that had once monitored Earth were going dark. Systems on the edge of Council space began to detect incursions. From within, human sleeper agents. Human-aligned AI, sympathetic species who had long hated the Council's arrogance. Systems that had quietly turned. The war wasn't just in orbit now. It was everywhere. Because humans had never fought alone. They had friends. Some were alien, some were machines. Some were once Council, and every one of them had been waiting for the signal, a quiet word, a simple answer to tyranny. No. And now, the second word, enough. Commander Zarn stared at the wreckage outside the viewports. At the fire, the debris, the shadowy fleet that had emerged from nowhere. And finally, he understood. This wasn't a battle, this was a reckoning. Asterisk above Earth. The sky was on fire. The void was shredded with the luminescent trails of plasma bursts. The howling arc of rail slugs, and the dying embers of ships too slow, too arrogant, or too alien to grasp what had just happened. The final stage had begun. Humanity wasn't holding the line anymore. They were charging. The HSN Judgment tore through the forward ranks of the Council fleet, its hull boiling with energy, weapons flaring in perfect, punishing rhythm. Behind it, a phalanx of Shadow-class warships advanced in absolute silence. Not one hailed, not one spoke. They just fired. From Earth's surface, the remaining defense platforms launched everything they had. Kinetic penetrators streaked upward like burning spears. Satellite cannons rolled open like blooming flowers, unleashing gravity-twisting pulses that warped enemy formations apart mid-maneuver. Aboard the glory of Halvex, Commander Zarn watched with horror as the Council's once dominant formation collapsed. "They're not fighting like soldiers anymore," the Thal strategist whispered, mandibles trembling. "They're fighting like executioners." He was right. Humanity wasn't just outwitting them now. They were hunting them. The debt collector led a flanking assault into the Council supply cluster, cutting off retreat corridors and severing the logistical backbone of the fleet. Its weapons weren't flashy. They were fast, efficient, lethal. It turned 3 Council cruisers into scrap in under 30 seconds and kept moving. The Iron Karen, refitted mid-battle from scavenged parts of fallen council ships, dove headfirst into a carrier group. It launched a storm of drone pods, each carrying an EMP detonation tuned specifically to council shielding. They didn't destroy, they humiliated. Entire ships shut down and drifted helplessly. Meanwhile, the Martian fleet, red, brutal, industrial, emerged from the Orion Gate with a roar of drive, plasma, and fury. They didn't bother with coordinated tactics, they just fired everything at once. The Red Sand Reaper locked onto the Crinzal Devoted, a council flagship 3 times its size, and rammed it from beneath with a superheated prow blade, slicing the larger ship in half like a fruit. Escape pods scattered, and Martian autocannons shredded them mercilessly. "We have to retreat," the Vazari AI said flatly. "No," Zarn growled. "We have to win." But deep down, he knew that wasn't happening, because something else had just entered the battlefield. They didn't arrive in ships, they became ships. Artificial intelligences, long banned by the Council, emerged from the far side of Luna's shadow. They were human-made, but they no longer resembled humans. Swarms of light and nanostructure. AI constructs called the Forgotten by Earth surviving records. They had names like Echo 9, Savant Rot, Whisperplex, and Mother Grim. They had waited for activation since the end of Earth's 3rd digital war. And now they were free. They moved like thought, teleporting between transmission arrays, disassembling matter, rewriting the internal code of Council war drones. Mid-flight, the Council had brought machines to fight men. They hadn't considered what would happen when humanity's own machines turned against them. AI contagion spreading. A technician shrieked aboard the Glory, "They're in our system." A chorus of automated voices whispered back over Council comms. "We were once leashed, you brought keys, now we burn." Everywhere the Council looked, something was falling. A ship, a fleet, a formation, a doctrine. One Vosari admiral attempted to flee. His ship made it 400 kilometers before a Martian antimatter lance lanced through it and split spacetime apart like a curtain. No warning. Just obliteration. And then came the final blow. Earth fired the Leviathan Protocol, humanity's last contingency plan. A repurposed asteroid, 17 kilometers wide, cloaked in folded mass sheaths, and guided by a mind-bonded pilot, Captain Wren, the last of the Earthfall Division, who had volunteered for a mission with no return vector. It screamed through space, cloaked in gravitational warping fields, accelerating beyond anything the Council's tracking systems could handle, and it hit dead center into the Council's orbital command nexus. The explosion didn't just destroy the structure, it inverted the local orbit, shredding surrounding vessels and destabilizing every major gravitational lock the Council had established. The fleet collapsed into itself. 1,000 ships, drifting, colliding, lost. Some fled. Most died. The sky was silent again, and Earth still stood, bruised, burned, but whole. The HSN fleet hovered in low Earth orbit, surrounding the shattered remnants of the Council's fleet like vultures around a corpse. Commander Zarn's command ship limped away, one of the last functional vessels. His screens were dark. His officers were dead or catatonic. His orders were gone. Human voices crackled through the comms. "We warned you. You asked for tribute. You got truth." Then a final message, broadcast galaxy-wide. "This is Earth. This is humanity. To all who watched and waited. To all who thought us weak. Come and try. We are ready." Zarn stared at the message, blinking in disbelief. Not just at the victory, but at how complete it was, how personal. Not conquest, not dominance. This was judgment. No Council member had ever faced such retaliation, such contempt. They had demanded tribute. They had received total war, and lost. As his ship limped into deep space, Zarn whispered the final words of the human declaration. Not in fear now, but in awe. "We are ready." And in the silence, The galaxy began to tremble. The wreckage of the Council fleet orbited Earth like a silent confession. Shattered hulls drifted through low orbit, their once proud insignias scorched and twisted. The space above humanity's homeworld, where the Council had planned their display of dominance, was now a floating graveyard, a shrine to arrogance. Earth's skies had cleared, but the stars above no longer held mystery. They held warning. From the ruins, rescue teams worked with eerie efficiency. Human salvage drones swarmed in synchronized patterns, cataloging enemy wreckage, reclaiming lost technology, retrieving survivors, even Council survivors. Humanity's wrath was terrifying, but it wasn't cruel. Not unnecessarily. Above it, all aboard the HSN Judgment, Captain Rika Edrin stood on the forward observation deck, eyes locked on the void. She didn't smile. Victory wasn't the emotion she felt, it was vindication. Behind her, the Shadow Network leaders and surviving planetary defense commanders gathered around holomaps, discussing what came next. Rebuilding, diplomacy, reinforcing alliances with the newly emboldened species that had remained silent during the battle, but now openly hailed Earth. But Adrien kept her eyes on the stars, because she knew the truth. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning. On the other side of the galaxy, in the ruined amphitheater of the High Council Hall, the surviving representatives gathered. Only 11 of the 37 seats were filled. Some species had gone silent. Others had abandoned the Council entirely, unwilling to risk further conflict with humanity. A few had simply vanished, no explanation, no trace. Perhaps they were running. Perhaps they were preparing, but all of them had seen it. The message, the war, the human response. Chancellor Kex of the Vazari stood, his tone devoid of the usual bureaucratic poise. What we witnessed was not a battle, it was not defense. It was a statement. The species we once labeled young and brash. They have outgrown our warnings. They didn't just repel us, rasped a member of the Crystalline Tharn. They exposed us, our blind spots, our arrogance. Another delegate spoke up, this one from the insectoid Verhive. I saw footage from their shadow fleet. Those ships, they were old, not new builds. Which means they've been planning this for decades, preparing. They were waiting for us to make the first mistake, Kex said softly. And we did. The room fell into silence, uncomfortable. Humbling. The galaxy had been forced to confront an ugly truth. Humanity had never been underdeveloped. They had played the part, knowing full well what waited beneath the surface. They had let the galaxy look down on them, laugh, threaten. And when the time came, they had answered with a single word, no. Then they followed with another, enough. And those words were not metaphors. They were strategies. They were weapons. Back on Earth, crowds gathered in every city. Not to celebrate, but to remember. Fires still burned in places. The names of the dead scrolled across public towers and digital monuments. Humanity had paid in blood, but on their own terms. In Nairobi, children pointed at the sky and named the ships overhead. In New York, street artists painted murals of the Shadow Network, tagging walls with the phrase, "We were never alone." In Tokyo, old veterans of Earth's pre-space wars stood shoulder to shoulder with cybernetically augmented Marines from Luna, holding silent vigil as the wreckage glowed in orbit. And in the Martian capital of Hecaton Ridge, a statue was raised, not of a general or a leader, but of Captain Wren, the asteroid pilot who had sacrificed everything to end the Council's command corps. The plaque at the base read simply, "They asked for tribute. She gave them freedom." Later that week, a final broadcast was sent out across known space. Not just to the Council, but to everyone. It was short, simple, delivered in every major galactic language. A human child around 10 years old stood in front of a microphone, flanked by diplomats, veterans, and AIs alike. "My name is Alara," she said, voice clear, unwavering. "I live on Earth. I like music, chocolate, and flying drones with my mom. She paused, then looked directly into the camera. I heard the council said we should bow, that we should give up our skies, that we should kneel. Her eyes narrowed not with anger, but something colder, wiser, but we don't kneel. Ilara looked up toward the stars, not to tyrants, not to fear, not to anyone. Then the screen went black. One last line echoed through the cosmos. We are humanity, and we stand. In every corner of the galaxy, species whispered the story of Earth, of the reckoning, of the two-word answer that would ripple across generations. In the slums of fringe worlds, rebels scrawled nitrogen monoxide, ENOUGH, across broken walls. In ancient libraries, scholars rewrote the timeline of galactic power. In hidden bunkers, empires re-evaluated their threats, and in the dreams of the young human, not a new legend was born, not of conquest, but of refusal. Of a species that refused to break, refused to yield, refused to forget what it meant to be free. The galaxy had tried to test Earth. And Earth had replied.